Jamie, JF, big love to the queen. We were just saying before we started here how we miss each other. Oh my goodness. I was so happy to see when I got the email about new music. I was just like, we got to talk.
Oh
How are you doing?
man, I feel it's such a cliche to say it, but like I feel so freaking good, and it feels really good to be back. I gotta be honest with you, yeah.
Oh my goodness. Oh, you know what? You are like I we're going to talk about a lot of things, but the thing that I always loved about you is positive energy, big smile, always, and I've seen you with fans, okay? So I know how you interact with them and things like that. I see what you do on social media. Like, what were you doing? The suitcase and toilet paper.
Kashmir. Oh, Rudy, don't judge me. Listen, you know what? It's really funny because obviously being part of like an artist is like
Mhm.
you get endorsements and there's opportunities that kind of, come at you. And I think every day, I get an email or two being like, "Hey, can you endorse this or can you endorse this?" And I'm like, I'm pretty usually careful with it. And through my label, Cashmere kind of came in and they were just so cool. And we talked about concept and I was like, yo, if I get to be me, then like 100% give me free toilet paper. That's just like an economic good choice at this point. I'm cheap, Rudy. Toilet paper's expensive, inflation. I got
Yeah.
a lot of rolls of toilet paper for free. I'm living the dream.
Oh no! Remember when the pandemic first started? What was it that everybody was literally fist fighting for?
That's what I'm saying. It's like currency now. I could sell that. I'm going to quit music and just sell toilet paper for a living. I'm telling you.
Oh my goodness! And the other thing I'm happy about, what you've been posting too, you've been in a relationship for about a year now, a very happy one.
Yeah, about a year and 3 months. Yeah, Vic, it's funny, during the pandemic, obviously everyone struggled a lot. And for me, I went through, admittedly a really dark couple of years of trying to sort out, what I wanted and kind of getting myself right. And Vic kind of walked in my life at this time where, when they say like if you if you're the best version of yourself, you'll get
Yes.
the best people. That is like to a T, how it happened with Vic, that I really feel like I put in a lot of work for myself. And so she kind of walked in my life at this perfect time where I could be, everything I want to be in a partner, and she's everything I've ever needed in a partner. So
Give
it's
her
great.
a big hug for me, and hopefully, I will see the both of you at some event or
She's gonna be
whatever.
obsessed with you. I already told her everything about you. I told her all the backstories, and she's like, "Yo, Rudy, like, hit me up."
Oh man, I got two big hugs coming over that way.
Oh,
So, but let's talk about with everything going on because as we are speaking, of course, we're talking solo act here. Now, I've already talked to your former partner, but still friend. What happened? I got his version of it. I'm going to ask you now. What happened exactly?
it's always interesting because I what I try to do is I try to be as objective as possible. There's kind of two sides. What I like to say is there's two sides to every story, and then there's the
Yeah.
truth. What I like to be is objective. Listen, the long and the short of it is I was really unhappy. I had been unhappy for about a year um, before I left, and I think everything was building up to the point where I felt there were kind of a lot of decisions along the way that um, I wasn't 100% comfortable with. I like doing things very different. And it's not a bad thing, it's not a good thing, it's just a different thing. But what it came down to is I was falling out of love with music, that we were doing. I felt that, the team was kind of pushing in a way that one I don't it's hard to answer this question because again, we're gonna both see it very differently. I feel that I don't make music for other people. I make music for me, and that's how you get the most authentic listeners. And I needed to leave the group and continue on with like that journey. You know what I mean? That's why I started music in the first place. Um, it's tough. We don't have a relationship right now. And I, when I left the group and kind of confronted my unhappiness with them, I also kind of made it clear that I couldn't be a part of that team emotionally as well. And let go of my management team. I walked away from Elijah, And I'm happy to see that he's doing what he loves because, you know, it works for him. You know,
Yeah,
it just wasn't working for me.
he's an amazing producer. We've had a chance to do a couple of interviews. I am so happy for him. He seems like he's in, like you just stated, in a good place.
That's what we're all looking for, you know, as an artist. Like, if you can be the most authentic version of you, then that's what you need to do. And like, I always say this, you know, not everyone that you meet in your life is supposed to be there forever. Sometimes you have to learn a lesson,
Yes.
and then you move on. And I think that's exactly what happened with me and Elijah. We learned a lot from each other, I hope. I learned a lot from him. And when I was ready to kind of move on and do something different, it was time, you know.
You know, it's kind of funny because if I remember from, oh God, my mind has gone blank. What was the show called again when we first met you guys?
The launch.
The Launch. Thank you. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. If I remember in the episode, he wanted to do the song one way. You were the one that suggested the reggae. Am I correct?
So you know what? What kind of
And
happened?
what was the song again?
The launch no longer exists.
Right.
Ain't easy. Yeah.
Yeah,
The launch
that-
no longer exists.
Right.
So basically you get in the studio session and then you go to the hotel and sleep and then go back the next day and record. I had ideas for wanting to rewrite a lot of the song to make it kind of less pop for me. I think unfortunately Elijah wasn't able to touch on production, you know, in a way that he wanted. I think he got
Yes.
a couple of stems in there, and it would have been more ideal to kind of have him be more part of physically the song. But I think no, I think we both agreed pretty heavily that like we wanted to reggae it up a little bit and make it a little more like funky to us and like suit my voice a little more. We were both definitely part of that decision.
Okay, thank you for correcting me on that because I always thought about that situation. I always thought it was you that was pushing it, but it was definitely the right decision because when your vocals kick in, I think it's like towards like just around the middle end or whatever, and you're just grinding into the song. It was the right decision because it made it into what it was. It was a big anthem instead of just a song.
Absolutely. And Elijah always had an ear for what suited my voice. That was one of the things he was incredible at, is that he always kind of knew what was best for my voice. And we were always, you know, for the most part, especially in the beginning, very much in agreement for like, this is too pop for you, or this is too this for you, or that for you. So he had a great ear when it came to not just me, anyone he was in a session with, knowing kind of what direction to get the best performance of their vocal.
Now, this is probably going to take a couple of years because I love watching retrospective videos of interviews of artists who have been around for a long time, and when you know a situation happens, breakups happen, and then when years later and when they talk about it, one of the things that always comes out is a lot of times it wasn't the individuals, sometimes it's just the business itself. Could have the business itself sort of put a wedge into what was going on professionally between the both of you?
I think that's a huge part of it. I you know, it's tough because again, like you know, I can't speak for Elijah. On my end of things, I felt that we both do business very differently. The whole team does business, very differently than I do. Again, doesn't have to be a bad thing, just a different thing. So I think once Elijah and I both kind of got a taste for the fame and like everything, it actually made me grow in a different direction, and for him it made him grow in a different direction. And I think it's as simple as that, right? That creatively we just started butting heads and being like, whoa, like to my core, I don't believe that we should be doing this. And on his end, he was like, whoa, to my core, I don't believe we should be doing this. And that's the thing is, you can't, there's so many listeners. There's 7.7 billion people in the world. There are so many people listening to music. There's a category for everybody. You can make the most weird, eclectic stuff, and there's a category for that, and probably millions of people listening. So it works for both of us for what we want to achieve, I think, in this industry.
Emotionally, what was it like to think about this decision of walking away from the popularity, because we're talking Juno nominations, we're talking about shows. Every time I turn around, you guys were either headlining or following or something. Like there was a lot of momentum going on. What was it like for you to sit and think about parting ways with this? And then, even once you made that decision, having it actually happen for, say, a few months before things started to change again, or a few years.
Yeah, it was a couple of years that I took a step back, right? You know what? It was my mental health is number one, and I learned that the hard way, as I think most people do. And for a year and a half of being unhappy, I was, in my head was such a nightmare, and working with me was such a nightmare because I was always like, no, like, I don't want to do this. And like, at that point, it's not fun for me and it's not fun for them or anybody that's kind of directly working with me. And so after a year and a half, when I was finally ready to confront how unhappy I was, and have that conversation, it was hugely emotional. Elijah and I were genuine best friends. And we had a phenomenal relationship. And the lessons, I would like to say that we taught each other, but I'll just speak for myself. The lessons that I learned from him are outrageously valuable. You can't pay for that kind of therapy kind of thing. And I'm able to bring it into my life now. And that in itself is outrageously valuable. It's still a really emotional decision, standing up for something that you believe in and standing up for something that's kind of not the easier way, because I could have kept on that track and maybe, continue doing the Juno noms and this and that. But I literally every day was waking up, Rudy, being like, this is not me and this is not who I ever wanted to be. And so what's the point? When you're sitting on top of the world and you don't even recognize yourself, what the hell is the point? And we were far from the top of the world at that point. You know what I mean? We still had a ways to go.
So you understand what Shawn Mendes has been going through.
100%. And I look at Shawn Mendes and I'm like, man, like that kid does not break, like have a break. And
Yeah.
like, I look at this industry and everyone jokes, I always compare it. I'm like, yo, like we're not doctors. Like, can you imagine like standing in surgery for X amount of time and the pressure and this and that. It's such a different lifestyle in terms of the fact that we don't really get to turn off ever.
Yes.
It is always, we are always kind of being watched. We're always waiting for the applause. And when we're not getting the applause, we're like, what did I do wrong? So often very insecure, or we have to work through the insecurity because human nature is when that happens, you're going to feel insecure. So you kind of have to find a way to navigate it. Everyone kind of, for the most part, feels a level of entitlement. Some are more respectful about it. Others very much are not.
Yes.
I remember a time where I couldn't go get groceries for a little bit because it was like, oh my God. And that's not fun for me. I love going to pick fruits and vegetables. I used to be a chef. Like, that's my favorite thing in the world. And I couldn't do the simple kind of things. I would go out with my friends and we'd be mid-conversation of something really important and they were venting to me and somebody would come up and like have a 15-minute long conversation because they just kind of wanted to get to know me, which is not wrong. But it's a weird thing meeting somebody that you're like, oh my God, I love your music or whatever, like, of course I get that. We never get to turn off. And Shawn is an A-lister. He is one of the biggest stars in the freaking world and he will go down in history. I don't know him personally. I think probably what he's going through is an insane amount of needing to take care of his mental health. And he's owed that.
And it's the same thing that we saw years ago with Justin Bieber and how he reacted to exactly what you talked about. In fact, one of the best videos that I've seen on social media is when he's going home and there were some girls that were in front of his home and they were asking for a picture and autograph and things. And I loved how he handled it. He explained, this is my home. This is where, I want to go to. So I can't do this for you because this is not the place to do it. And the way they were just looking at him like, no, we own you. You have to. And I absolutely agree with what he did. I agree with what you're doing. People don't understand the pressures and the things that you guys go through, the lack of sleep, the fact that every time that you turn around and wake up, you don't know where you are because you're traveling everywhere around the world.
Yeah.
I'm used to a home cooked meal. Maybe once or twice I go eat out somewhere. Having to eat food that you're not used to, what that does to your mental state and your health. Like, I can keep going
There's
and
no
going.
routine. There's no
Yeah.
routine, right? And you look at somebody like Sean, and he's very open about having a routine. He wakes up at like what 5, 6 a.m. every morning and works out. First thing, and he talks about what he eats. He's very healthy physically,
Mm-hmm.
and that really helps, obviously, with mental health. But at some point, it kind of unbalances itself because there's such a pull
Yep.
that the rest kind of falls underneath, and that's exactly what happened to me right before I left. That like I was like, I'm not having fun. B, I don't necessarily believe in what we're doing anymore. And C, I don't feel like I'm surrounded by the people that I need in order to stay calm and grounded. And so it was like this triple threat of like, nope, I'm about to like go into a place that I promised myself I would never get to again. And before I did, I was, lucky enough to walk away. And I have, my family is incredible and keeps me very grounded. None of them are yes men, so they love like calling me out or being hard on me, which I need.
Where did I just read that? Oh my goodness! I wish I could remember who the artist was, but I literally just like in the last 24 hours read that where an artist was talking about exactly what you said, and it was a he, and he said something to the effect of, "My problem was I didn't have people who would put me in check." Oh no, it was an actor. And it was a black actor. I can't think of his name right now,
Okay.
but he said one of the problems that he had was he didn't have enough of his people to put him in check because once he started to become famous, suddenly he had what you just said, yes men, not the true people that would go, wait a second. What saved Michael Bublé, and I remember the conversation I had with him, he said the same thing. What kept him going, because he was drinking, he was talking nonsense and whatever, he said it was his family that put him in check and say, hey, don't you ever forget, we know the real you.
And
And that spun him back.
that's the thing, is that like you are who you surround yourself with, man. Like it's proven time and time again that you are who you surround yourself with. And I don't like when I'm surrounded by people who obviously are yes men, but people who kind of say like, okay, just do this. Like if you do this now, then like you'll get to do what you want later. And like if that's not true to your day-to-day life, then why should it be true for my career? Like I just think people kind of forget along the way all the little lessons that we learn in life, and they don't apply it to the bigger situations, and then you find yourself in this hole and you're like, "Huh, could have avoided this." The people around me now that I've surrounded myself with, and I've gotten rid of the people who don't do that for me. Um, but the people who are in my life, from my partner to my family to my best friends in the entire world to now my acquaintances, they all put me in check when I need it, and they do not tell me what I want to hear just to spare my feelings. And I'm not that friend to them. So it's that balance that really works well. And I think that artists really need that. How many managers out there are like, just do it, just do it, just do it, because they want to get theirs as well.
Yeah.
I can't do that.
So when did your mind and soul start to clear enough that new music was able to sink in? Because we're going to be going to the new single in a moment.
So for roughly 2 years, but for a couple of features that I hopped on, because I was in love with the songs. For 2 years, I took a step back. I think I have a a very strong compass, and I always have. Um, I trust myself when I'm ready to do things, and I trust myself that if I'm not getting there, it's time to push. Um, what happened was I was able to take a step back for 2 years and write for other incredible artists, and build that side of the career that I'm in love with as well, which is being a writer. And it was able to take all the pressure off all the music. So I was able to just objectively write and then fall back in love with some of it and say, oh my God, I kind of want to keep this for me. And one day when I'm ready to release again, I think this is going to be for me. And it allowed me to, as I say, take complete pressure off the music. And so it's like this, not play the TikTok game and not say like, what's going to go viral today? I don't want to try that hard.
Yes.
I don't want to try that hard. That's defeats the purpose of why I started music in the first place. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
As honest as I can be. So it allowed me to not think about any of that and just write. and whatever came to my head and whatever came out of me was the most organic stuff, Rudy, that's come out of me in years. And I'm able now to be an artist that has music that completely defines her, me. And it's euphoric. As dramatic as that sounds, is euphoric.
Then let's get to it. What's the new single called, and what is it about, and how does it represent you today?
This one is called Hate Me, Love Me. And it's actually quite different from like all my other really emotional music. Um, I was kind of driving around and I think I was doing like errands, and I started humming this melody na, 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 in the middle, and I kept saying I can't be stuck in the middle. And I was really frustrated that day because I just kind of felt an accumulation of like everyone's just like trying to tell me I'm doing something wrong, but I to my core don't feel like I am. Or I started remembering all these scenarios in which it happened. And then, one of my closest friends, Eddie, he was going through a really toxic breakup. And I was like, I'm writing about this because I felt it too. So I was like, I'm doing it for you. So I wrote this hilarious, song for my two friends, CJ and Eddie. And it was about both of them kind of going at each other, being like, you're an idiot and you're an idiot and you're an idiot. And it was like the nye, nye, nye song that I haven't ever written before. And it ended up being so catchy, in my opinion, that I just had so much fun writing it with the producer behind it. And it was great. It was a really fun song to write.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I think a lot of us needed that, especially during the pandemic, because there was a lot of couples doing that. So, EP or album following this? What's going on?
Yeah, so in the fall, I mean, I don't know if I can tell you this, but I'm doing it
Yes, you
anyway.
can.
Come at me, UMC. I think in the fall we're gonna be doing a project. I don't think personally we're living in an album world. I think people are consuming music way too quickly, and that doesn't necessarily. I do the same thing, but I find myself getting in the trap of like an artist will release something and I'll be like, this is amazing, can't wait for the next thing, and it's like, oh my god, why am I doing that to them? Because I hate when people do that to me. So I think a project, what I want to do is I want to put all these kind of mini projects together that tell a little bit more of a story and they're a little bit more creative rather than just kind of tossing out music in the world and seeing where it lands. So yeah, I think fall time that's going to be happening.
Why do I have this feeling that you're heading down the road of creating your own Beatles White Album at some point in time?
I'm dead. Just for you, Rudy. I'm dedicating the whole thing to you.
I'm just curious, before we start wrapping this up, I'm seeing a keyboard behind you. Do you play?
I fake it, and that's all that matters in life, Rudy. Fake it till you make it. You know what? My dad is a incredible musician. He's a beautiful pianist, and I kind of grew up with him playing like the classical stuff, like Beatles and Somewhere Over the Rainbow type stuff. And he put my sister and I in piano. And you could not pay me to practice, Rudy. You could not pay me money to practice when I was a kid. And I went into my, one of the whatever lessons, and the teacher was like, you're not going anywhere with piano. And at like 7 years old, I'm not going to be like, I'll show you, Tim. Like, I was just like, all right, kick rocks. Now I guess I'm not doing piano. So I completely quit. My dad was so devastated because he plays and he wanted his kids to play. And it wasn't until high school that I wanted to start writing my own music, but I didn't know how to play anything. Like I was like, how do I can't just do acapellas, on a mic. So I started learning and teaching myself how to play piano again. And I'm by no means great, but I do okay.
That's all that matters. What about performances? Anything happening for the rest of 2022?
Yeah, so I've been pretty patient with shows. I think there's been a few things come in, and we've been like, all right, like let's just hold off. I actually am playing my first show back August 13th in Ottawa at Lansdowne. I'm so happy that it's in my hometown, and this band is ready, man. Our drummer Darius and Matt, our guitarist, they stuck with me, and they're still playing with me on stage. And when I tell you these guys are just like as fiery as ever, it's a cool show, and I'm really excited that I get to start here in my hometown.
Is there a stage big enough for you, because you have so much energy, like if people need to take lessons from you, because a lot of times you see an artist stand in front or else they've got their dances here and there. You on your own will tear a stage up completely. I don't think there's a stage big enough that can handle your energy.
COVID happened. I need to get back on the treadmill to get my endurance up. I'm telling you, I was always a little hefty, but like I got to get my crap together.
Oh gosh.
You know what? I performing is the thing that I feel like I was born to do. I am the most me on stage, and being able to get energy back from a crowd. That's probably one of the only times that I think an artist feels they're getting just as much energy back as they're putting out into their music. And so next time you're still in Toronto, no?
Of course, yeah.
Well, then next time I'm in Toronto, you're the first one I'm telling, and you're getting out to a show.
Jamie, you so fine, blow my mind. Love you big time. I am so happy for you. Last question, because people always ask, do you think in the future there could be a reunion? I mean, in essence, had been around for years. The guys have broken up, you know. And as we speak, last night, they did a reunion concert with the, you know, the big show that happened, you know, with Drake and the rest of them. Could there be something in the future where...
You know what? I never say never. At this point, I'm in such a different point. I wish I could say like, oh my God, you know, maybe one day. At this point, I'm so kind of moved on from that part of my life.
Yeah.
And I think that because it's so distant to me now in my head, because I worked through it all, I think for right now, it's like whatever happens, happens. But I'm in no need to kind of relive that part of my life right now, because I just moved on past it. Yeah. Ask me in a year or two, this date, a year from two, ask me again. Maybe there'll be a different answer.
It's going to happen. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Forces it.
Love you big time. Can't wait to see you come back to Toronto. And you know I'm always there. Big supporter and big love.
Thank you for always supporting us, Rudy. You're a perfect friggin' human being, and I love you.